So there was an LA Times article that was published a few days ago that talks about the Selena Series and the writers expressing that Netflix didn't give the production the kind of budget that it deserved, and that dishonored the cast and crew and the writers, the production team, as well as Selena. The author went on to compare the viewership of The Crown to the Selena Series, and it compared the budgets. And that sounds a little familiar.
Selena the Series had 25 million viewers. Only a few less viewers than season 4 of The Crown. Season 4, they have been nominated for a ton of awards.
I have thoughts. Hi everybody, this is Pedro. I just got out of work, which is why I'm dressed like this. But I wanted to be able to do this video. I've been trying to think about how exactly I wanted to put my thoughts. I'm not jumping into one bandwagon or another, disliking Netflix or disliking the series for this or that. I actually think it's a little bit more complex than that, and I think it's important for us to talk this through. Number one, as I have discussed many times before, whenever there are Selena-related projects, they tend to be underappreciated. So I've mentioned this about Selena herself, that while she was in life, there were many times that she was underappreciated. You can go watch that video. I can, link it below or something. Or just look at my stuff. I don't have that many videos. So I knew then when this was a Selena project, that there were a lot of people that weren't going to understand it. That's just a given. So it has happened with the Selena movie, it has happened with the cosmetic line, it happened with the postage, everything that is Selena related. There's so many times that people just don't understand the magnitude and the importance that Selena plays to her fans and how much pull she has with people that are not even fans necessarily of her music. She has a really remarkable story. She's an all-American girl who had a lot of charisma, and so she pulls a lot of heartstrings. And then there's her talent, which attracts a whole other set of people that might not even know about her, but just like her voice and her music. So there's a lot to work with for Selena, but they always seem to focus on the tragedy part, or they always seem to think that there's this love angle or this, but Selena was all sorts of things all at once. So they have a really difficult time sort of putting her into a box. That was musically, that was with her life, that was with her career. So I'm used to it. So I understood from the beginning that Netflix was probably gonna do something odd about it, and they did. What they did odd about it, it seems like that they moved the production down to Mexico and teamed it to be a Latin American Netflix release. So that does three things. Number one is that the production did not film in the United States. So it means that people who might be normally available for production or crew in a place like Hollywood or filming on location or in Atlanta where they have another huge operation are not available for those productions. They are in those areas. So they have to work with the local production team. So hair and makeup, even directors and things like that, they kind of live in a certain area. Sure, you could fly anybody anywhere if you have a big enough budget. But what we understand now is that number two, the reason that Netflix did that and put it in Latin American countries is so that they could reduce the budget for it. So then even if you move it into a different location, let's say they moved to film in Mexico, not because it was a Mexico-based production, but because that was the best place to film, then you could still bring people in if you have a big enough budget to sustain, their living expenses, their salaries, the per diem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's more expenses if you film on location than instead of filming in a studio. So, they obviously weren't filming in Texas, in Corpus Christi, and in San Antonio, the way that the film did. They were filming in studio and in the area of Mexico, of northern Mexico. And so the number three thing that Netflix did that to me is a mistake is that they assumed that this would have most of its popularity in Latin American countries, not the United States. So for me, this isn't surprising per se. I mean, that's why I did that whole video. I don't know if this reporter at the LA Times actually watched my video, because a lot of the things that she talks about, I actually talk about weeks and weeks ago on the video. Maybe we were working on it at the same time. Maybe it was an inspiration. Who knows? I like to think that maybe she watched one of my videos and it sparked something in her. But, that's wishful thinking. But it didn't surprise me that they moved this into Latin America. It didn't surprise me that they tried to give it a smaller budget, but it doesn't make it right. The thing that Netflix and Funko and Mac and all of these people don't realize is that yes, Selena has a huge Hispanic following, obviously. And their assumption will be is that, well, we should go into Latin American countries and market this. The thing is that the base of Selena's fans are still in the United States. They are, if they're Mexican like me. I moved here when I was very young. As much as I consider myself Mexican, I'm obviously American as well. There's no denying it. I obviously speak English. I listen to English music, along with Spanish music, and eat a variety of food. I know that a lot of you do. You don't grow up in one singular culture your entire life. Many of us who are born into dual cultures, we transverse between the two of them very easily. Selena was that. Selena was born between two cultures, and so she went between the two cultures very easily. So she appeals to a lot of people like us. That's not as true if you are in Panama or in Mexico and you have never lived in the United States. You don't have to transverse those cultures. Certainly, there's a lot of universality to Selena's life that can appeal anywhere. But as far as Selena's base audience, they were Tejanos. They were people who were, right on the border between two cultures. So to assume that her biggest audience is going to be in Mexico is a huge mistake. It created this aura that Selena wasn't American enough to be, appreciated by Americans. There's one thing that I want to make sure that we address. I think the talent was top notch. I think Christian Serratos was right for the role. I think she brought elements to the Selena role that I wasn't expecting, but that Amor Prohibido performance at the Astrodome, to me, that blew me away. And then all of the performances in season 2 were just so great. You could tell she did her homework so well. And yeah, she gave a different nuanced performance to Selena, but I'm okay with that. It wasn't Jennifer Lopez. And it wasn't Selena, but neither was Jennifer Lopez. I never saw Jennifer Lopez as Selena. I don't think Jennifer Lopez looks like Selena. I don't think Jennifer Lopez laughs like Selena. I don't think Jennifer Lopez sings like Selena. I don't think Jennifer Lopez dances like Selena. I do think Jennifer Lopez is a very good dancer, and she was able to mimic and interpret certain parts of Selena that were really great and gave her these shades. And I think the same of Christian, just not the same as Jennifer Lopez. And that's okay. That's what acting does. I think she was the right person for the role. I think the other actors were the right people for the role. There were some actors that I enjoyed a lot more than I enjoyed in the movie. Chris Perez is one of them. I enjoyed the Chris Perez in the series a lot more than I enjoyed the Chris Perez in the movie, et cetera, et cetera. So please, I don't want to get into this discussion of like, well, if they had had more money, they could have picked a better cast. No, I don't think that there was a perfect person to play Selena. I don't think so. And I'm sorry, but just if you're making TikTok videos that are 20 seconds at a time, doesn't make you an actress or a performer. So please don't give me names of people who look just like Selena. I don't care. I care about an actor that can do a good job. And I think Christian did a good job. However, I think Christian Serratos would have done an even better job had she been handed a better production. So one of the things that we know about the movie is that Jennifer moved in with the family for a month, that, she had all of these dance rehearsals that were spaced out. They got to film on set. They got to, bring in Selena fans, thousands upon thousands of Selena fans to recreate these concerts. All of those things cost money. And I can 100% guarantee you that Jennifer Lopez thrived out of that live audience. Christian had to perform to nobody many times. Number one, because of COVID. But number two, also probably because they didn't have the budget to hire that many extras. Yes, the Selena movie had a lot of unpaid extras as well. But the people that it takes to manage a 20,000 person crowd, you need a lot of staff to be able to do that. So if you don't have the management in your production, the budget in your production to be able to bring in 20,000 unpaid extras, you can't do it. And so that's what a production like Selena the Series had to deal with. They would say, well, we don't have the kind of budget to bring in 20,000 extras. We don't have the kind of budget to fly the entire production crew to the Alamo Dome or to the Astrodome or outside of Selena's houses. So we have to do the next best thing and just figure it out on our own. And I think they created something really special. The amount of details that they were able to put into the storyline, into the costuming, into the houses, into the sets was really phenomenal, which to me I appreciate the series even more knowing what they had to work with. And you're only able to achieve that magical, the crown type of effect if you have the kind of budget and timeline to be able to support those kinds of things. And money buys you time. The more money that you have, the more that you can take in building a story, the more that you can give an actor time to prepare, because you have to pay them to prepare. You have to be able to provide that support for them. The more time that you can have to bring in extras, the more time that you have to pick wigs and things like that. Money will get you that. And they didn't have that, and they still created something that was really special. And we can look at other Latin American productions and say, well, it's on par with them. I think that the Selena series is on par with the Luis Miguel series, which Netflix did for Latin America. I think it's on par with the Jenny Rivera. I know that some of you like those series better for this reason or that reason. In general, I think they're on par. I don't think the Selena series is on par with The Crown per se. So the Latin American series, the Jenny Rivera, the Luis Miguel, the Selena, have, I assume, similar budgets. What they might not have is different timelines, different availability. Luis Miguel and Jenny Rivera were at different places in their life. I'm not sure if Luis Miguel and Jenny Rivera have the amount of scrutiny over their clothes and this and that Selena has. So the actors had a little bit more room to breathe. Whereas Christian Serrato's knew if she did not flick her hair just right during the Astrodome scene, that we would notice. So that's a lot of pressure, and that's a whole different kind of acting that you can do than when you have a little bit more latitude, the way Jennifer Lopez did when she first played Selena. So let's just say and assume that they, for all intents and purposes, they had a similar budget, maybe a different timeline, and that the quality is fairly the same. Let's just say, just walk with me. But there's a big difference as to the Jenny Rivera and the Luis Miguel series and the Selena series. That big difference is that the Jenny Rivera and the Luis Miguel series did not have the kind of viewerships that Selena the Series did. Selena the Series was competing with The Crown on viewership, and actually their first part of Selena the Series got more viewers in its first month than The Crown did in its third season. This is at the height of The Crown's popularity. It actually got less viewers in previous seasons. It was increasing viewers every season. Selena the Series actually beat those numbers. So it deserved a budget equal to The Crown, not a budget equal to Luis Miguel or Jenny Rivera. There's absolutely nothing wrong with their series. You should watch them. They're good. These are wonderful artists that should be remembered. But just if we look at the numbers alone, Selena deserved to have the budget that The Crown did, simply by the numbers alone. And so Netflix was able to create a lower budget for the series by moving them to Latin America, saying, well, most of the appeal is going to be in Latin America anyway, so that's why we put it over there. They actually had a quote that said something to that sort. And with that, they were able to, bypass the budget limitations and, say, well, it's on par with, all of these other Latin American artists. Selena is an American artist. She is an American artist. Now, you might say, the same thing for Jenny Rivera. And Jenny Rivera actually was in the top 10 for the United States. She wasn't number one. Her series wasn't number one in as many countries as the Selena the Series or the Luis Miguel the Series, but she was in the top 10 for the United States, which makes sense because she was an American girl that happened to sing in Spanish. Selena was an American girl that happened to sing in Spanish. Luis Miguel is an Spanish-speaking, Latin artist, literally from Spain, Spanish artist from Spain who moved into Mexico. So it made sense that he was much better known in Latin America. And his series did not make it to the top 10 in the United States, I believe. I have to go back, but I believe it didn't. But it did in a whole bunch of other Latin American countries, but only in Spanish-speaking countries. So to me, Selena should have been a US production that happened to go to other Latin American countries, similar to the way that the singer did. She was an American-based artist who happened to tour Latin American countries because she started becoming bigger there. But she started here, and her base of fans were here. So I think Netflix made a huge mistake in assuming that Selena's main popularity was in Latin America. She had a great following in Latin America. She was number one in the United States too. The series was not number one in the United States for its second series, because I think a lot of people saw the first part and sort of said, eh. But if they had had the kind of budgets that The Crown did, if they were able to do the cinematography and do, everything else top notch, I think that the second part would have grown the way that The Crown did. And I actually don't think this is just she was Latina and so therefore she got less, and that's just how the world works. If you're Latino, Latina, Latinx, then you just get less. That's not true. In the Heights was released last week as well, and that had a huge budget with a huge stellar cast, with a huge, director that I'm sure commanded top notch. It got all of this billing. So it isn't just a Hispanic thing. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. I think it goes back to my whole argument about Selena being underappreciated. And I think the reason why Selena was underappreciated is because, similar to Selena the Series, she kind of spun gold out of hay. She did a lot with very little. Her styles was seen as gaudy during her lifetime by American audiences. We're talking about the time that she was doing the sparkly bustiers and the fringes and all of that stuff when there was grunge taking over the airwaves, and flannel was being worn, and the Calvin Klein CK1 models were all the rage. They were thin and skinny and white. Selena was none of those things. She was an American girl that represented a different class of American. Selena wasn't like Kurt Cobain in that he took his own life, and with that, he gave the greatest dose of reality to a lot of youth who were dealing with things of depression and isolation and those kind of things. Selena gave a voice to a group of people that had been ignored by the mainstream media, who weren't particularly glamorous, who weren't particularly well known. They might have been working in a kitchen, they might have been working as hotel maids, they might have been working in orchard fields. And I know this is an overgeneralization, but I'm just talking in general. This is how we were viewed. That this wasn't a people that represented America. We were the extras. We were the behind the scenes, and so we deserve a place on the extra side. On the world music is where Selena's albums used to be. There was no Latin music section when I grew up. To go to Walmart or Sam Goody's or Tower, there was no Latin American section. There was world music, and there were a few Latin artists within that world music. And as they point out in the series, what exactly is so exotic about a girl who grew up in Corpus Christi, Texas? And so I think when Selena passed away, the mainstream media wanted to exoticize her. Here was this woman that, danced sexily, and, she wore these costumes that looked like Madonna. She was the Mexican-American Madonna. And so they tried to push that narrative of saying, oh, here is this, sensationalized story. She got shot in the back by her fan club president, and oh my gosh, let's do a series about what does the killer think? The movie was able to change that narrative, and Selena's dad was very smart to create the movie very early on, because the media was shaping her out to be, something like a Nicole Brown Simpson, where Selena herself wasn't the important part. It was only the event that surrounded her murder that were important and interesting. Selena's father, with Gregory Nava, who created the movie, changed that narrative completely and said, it wasn't how Selena died, it was how she lived that made her important. I know you heard me say that before, and I strongly believe that. The movie changed that narrative. And it also showed, hey, listen, yeah, Hispanics, Latinos, Latinx, whatever we called ourselves back then, they're definitely attracted to Selena and her music and her story, but so are other people. She was an American girl, so anybody that lives in the United States has something to gravitate towards. And also people who don't live in the United States have something to gravitate towards. She was incredibly talented. She was a talented musician who went from rags to riches. How is that not appealing to people around the world? It happens time and time and time again that people underestimate Selena, her power, and I think it's because they think, she's just for those people. Well, you that are watching, me that I listened to Selena since I was a teenager, we deserve to be respected. Selena deserves to be respected. We have value, and whether it's Netflix or the Grammys or Universal Music that now owns Selena's catalog, whoever it is, they have to contend with the fact that you're not doing us any favor by putting Selena on the cover. As a matter of fact, we're making you a lot of money every time you put Selena on the cover. And so with that, she deserves the kind of budgets that go to something like Princess Diana. If she's able to compete with Princess Diana, then she deserves that kind of budget. She deserves the kind of recognition that a Santana or a Britney Spears or a, Katy Perry or a Beyonce gets. If she's able to sell those kind of records, she deserves the kind of recognition that an Elvis or a Marilyn Monroe receive if she's able to have her legacy last this long. I don't think that everybody in the world needs to recognize Selena and her talent and all those things. I mean, I say that, but I'm okay. She was a regional artist that sort of grew beyond anybody's wildest expectations. So I understand that there's a lot of, people that are not exposed to Selena or the Selena fandom that don't quite understand the importance that she has in American culture. We need to demand that Selena gets the type of recognition that she deserves. We need to demand that us as fans are respected the way that other fandoms are respected. And we need to let them know, yeah, maybe a great deal of her fandom are just Mexican-American maids and cooks and workers. Maybe that is that. And maybe there's also lawyers and doctors and really successful, interesting social workers and people who are doing great things in there. But it doesn't matter. Why should it matter to you? Because you know why? All of our dollars are the same, aren't they? And boy, did you make a lot of dollars out of Selena, didn't you, Netflix? And boy, did you make a lot of dollars out of Selena, didn't you, Mac? And boy, did you make a lot of dollars out of Selena, didn't you, People Magazine? So what exactly is the problem? Sorry, I got a little bit political and I got a little bit emotional. I again want to stress that I do not think that the cast was second tier. But they started from here and were able to take it to here. So if they had been given the boost to start from here, then imagine how much further they could have gone. It's the same thing that we can say about Selena. If a record company had believed in her earlier, imagine what she could have done. Imagine where she could have been. And so it's okay for us to demand more. That's it. I know this is a lot of ranting and raving. I hope you like it. I hope you'll subscribe and hit the bell button and what else? Oh, like this video and comment. Oh, gosh, that's a lot of things that I'm asking you to do. But do all those things, please, because I don't know, they matter. More people watch it. Selena gets the recognition. You get the recognition. I get the recognition. We deserve the damn recognition. I think we do. Thank you for watching. Let me know what you want to hear about next. I still have to do the picking video for the Selena People magazine to end that contest. I'm going to do that this week. And I have a really special video that I'm trying to think about as to how to exactly do it. I want to review a couple of the podcasts that have emerged. And I also want to do a review of that other Selena series and book, Selena's Secret. That's coming up. All right, talk to you later. Aloha.